This is the fourth part of this manhwa. If you haven't seen the previous chapters, I recommend that you do. Second floor of the building. Although all the lackeys had been injured, Ha Sungbin, covered in wounds, still stood up against Li Paul, with Hin Gan behind him. The man with long hair notices this and mocks, saying he's only wasting his time defending a useless girl like her. But the short-haired man doesn't tolerate this and throws a strong punch that Li Paul barely manages to block, telling him that he won't allow him to insult his useless friend. After this, a powerful exchange begins between the two of them. Li Paul notices that his opponent is becoming more aggressive with time, and even thinks that if Gan weren't there, he would have already lost. So, trying to gain an advantage, he jumps towards the girl. But the short-haired man gets in his way, earning himself a new cut. In response, Li Paul questions why he's doing all of this, and Sungbin only replies that it's because he's the only useless one in the Hangul family who has to make up for them. This only infuriates the executive candidate, causing him to declare that he will mercilessly kill both of them. Now, Sungbin is seen on a street, living as a vagabond, malnourished. That was his dark past before he met the light of the Hangul family, who gave him a second chance at life. With these memories in mind, Sungbin doesn't hesitate when he shouts at Li Paul that he's willing to give his life for his friends. But Li Paul doesn't hesitate either and simply tells him that he'll be the first. On the third floor of the vestibule, Kim Taek continued his fight against Han Youngmin, with the latter simply defending himself against the wave of blows coming his way. However, the man with glasses taunts him, saying that if he rushes in fights, he'll quickly run out of strength, and as proof, he throws several punches at his arm with a cast. Confident, he tells him to surrender, but the long-haired man kicks him, which the executive manages to catch. This only makes Youngmin even angrier for making him break a sweat. Although Taek doesn't give up and makes a turn, managing to land a second kick that pushes his opponent back. Then, the long-haired man admits that if they weren't so stubborn, they would already be dead, and his plan for today was to survive at all costs. Seeing his determination, Youngmin furrows his brow and goes on the offensive, delivering a strong blow to his stomach and then starting a flurry of punches that Taek can barely dodge. Just a few seconds later, Kim Taek is on the floor, and as a finishing move, Youngmin steps on his injured arm, under the helpless gaze of Diob lying on the floor. Even if I die, the Hangul family won't, were Sungbin's thoughts, as he wanted to protect them all with his life, and he enters the room, delivering a direct blow to the man with glasses. The situation annoys Youngmin even more, as he doesn't understand how his henchmen let him through. At that moment, it is shown that all of He Guang's men are unconscious, including Li Paul, who lay there with his destroyed knives. Taek tries to stop his partner, seeing his bleeding wounds, but Sungbin ignores him, requesting a change of player. In room 302, the protagonist continued his attempts to break B. Gangrak's arm, thinking he had to do it quickly before drowning. But the man wouldn't allow it, and with the other arm already broken, he punches him in the face, which he notices helps loosen his grip. When he thought he was about to drown him, Byung Chul jumps on him with a chair to distract him. This action annoys B, causing him to start kicking the man on the floor, who was still gagged, while yelling at him for his stupidity. Suddenly, a blow stops his actions. Dajung emerges from the bathtub and had broken a stick over his face, making him bleed and drawing his attention towards him. After this, he admits that he didn't believe he had a chance against him before, but now, after fighting with him, he believed he could win. Of course, this angers B, and he charges at him. Returning to the imminent encounter between Youngmin and Sungbin, Taek tries to make his partner reconsider. When Youngmin is left surprised, although he doesn't get to finish his sentence due to the punch Sungbin throws and narrowly avoids hitting his face. After this, there is an exchange of blows between the two, ending with an advantage for the short-haired man, who manages to hit the executive squarely on the nose. Seeing this, Kim Taek himself is amazed by his partner's strength, and although he admits he's at his limit, he believes that the best way to win is to cooperate. Therefore, he takes advantage of Youngmin's retreat to try to strike him. But even in his situation, the man with glasses manages to dodge and deliver a kick that, if it weren't for Sungbin getting in the way, would have hit directly. Even after his mistake, Taek insists on wanting to help in the fight, but with a serious expression, Sungbin tells him that he must defeat him alone, confusing the long-haired man. Youngmin seizes this break to talk to Sungbin and emphasizes how ironic it seemed to see him become the strongest in the Hangul family for this new encounter. Sungbin then recounts how he met the man when he was still a young child, and it was the most disastrous thing that ever happened to him. With his memories fresh in his mind, Sungbin admits that he didn't know Youngmin was in He Guang, although with his underhanded personality, it was to be expected. Teek is astonished by his partner's expression, thinking he had never seen him so angry. Youngmin doesn't hesitate and says that even though he has become a little stronger, he will have to take care of him as he did back then. With the same determination, Sungbin declares that he will sever the annoying connection they had that day and charges at him. In the third-floor office, Dajung dodges B's punches while landing a precise strike on his side. The protagonist realizes that even if he tries to conceal it, the man is unable to use his arm correctly, which allows him to endure his blows and inflict damage. However, this only angers B, but with his condition, he is confident that he can use the same attacks he learned in his training against him. So, he hits him on the arm and then the chin, which disorients him, and he grabs his arm to throw him as Dio once did to him. But B stops him, emphasizing that he only managed to harm him earlier because he had support, but it won't happen again. Then, he takes his head and smashes it against the bathtub. Dajung immediately gets up and assumes a fighting stance, but the gangster notices his weakness and begins an onslaught of punches while taunting the protagonist. Between groans, Byung-chul pleads for him to stop or he'll kill him, but B ignores him and grabs a lever to approach. He then says that no one should ever mess with Hee-gwang, or they would face terrible consequences. Byung-chul doesn't accept this and tries to stop him by grabbing his foot. But this only results in the short-haired guy hitting him with the lever before telling the protagonist that he will teach him an important lesson before dying. As he begins to repeatedly strike the protagonist with the metal, B tells him that those who take what they want are the ones who always stand tall on the streets, being the only way to survive in that world. Dajun questions if that's true and recalls when Cho Hangul was teaching him a technique, and he interrupted to apologize for putting them all in danger by trusting in Wan and Sungho. To which Hangul responds that they also protect the people in the neighborhood, and even though they scolded him before, he knew that anyone would have made the same mistake he did, surprising the protagonist. Back in the present, B began to hit Byung-chul with the lever with murderous intentions, but suddenly stops. In his memory, Dajung asks his leader if it wouldn't be better to make a pact so they wouldn't do such stupid things. But Hangul says that there was nothing wrong with doing those kinds of things since, after all, idiots live together. There are no rules on the streets, just live the way you want. That's what the protagonist thought when he stood in front of Byung-chul, stopping the lever with his hand, declaring that he would save him and striking B on his injured arm. In response to his earlier assertion that he had chosen the wrong side, Dajung declares that he likes the Ji Hangul family precisely because they are meddlesome idiots, and that's why they will destroy anyone who gets in their way. After finishing his statement, he delivers a powerful blow to the older man's face. 8 years ago, Ha Sungbin recalls his life as an orphan when he was 10 years old. The director of the orphanage genuinely cared for all the refugees, although it could be annoying at times how kind she was to him. Gradually, he became friends with the other orphans, and although it was a comfortable place to live due to his youthful foolishness, he didn't appreciate it and escaped from the orphanage. While he was in an alley, he wondered what was good about life that made everyone so happy. As he searched for an answer, Sungbin witnessed the fall of a corpse and the murderer approaching him. It was Han Youngman, who showed irritation because he had seen him doing his job, something that Sungbin classifies as the worst mistake of his life. The tattooed man wanted to kill him as a witness, but upon learning that he lived in an orphanage, he decided to use him as a hostage to demand a payment for his life from the director. And even though the director paid with the meager savings they had, Youngman and his men continued to wreak havoc on the premises until one day, by accident, they killed the director, and with her death, the orphanage closed, causing all the orphans to be separated. The place that Sungbin called home was destroyed because of him, all because he had met Youngman. That's why he decided to go to the man's office to kill him with a knife, seeking revenge. Youngman manages to immobilize him in a few moves, and when he remembers who he is, he mockingly gives him advice. If you're not strong enough, get used to losing. He then decides to use his own knife to cut his forehead, using the scar as a daily reminder of his advice. This didn't deter Sungbin from trying to defeat the mafia member on several occasions, but he was always humiliated. At the end of his story, Sungbin says that today he will repay the orphanage's debt, delivering a powerful blow that Youngman withstands with both arms. With things now clear, the man with glasses doesn't hesitate to counterattack, reminding him that he's a loser who can never beat him. Teek notices that Youngman has started to use the same fighting style he used on him before and tries to warn his friend. However, Sungbin is unfazed by all of this and manages to dodge Youngman's attacks, breaking his guard and, promising to repay his debt with interest, unleashes a series of blows that knock him to the ground. Diob and Teek celebrate this, but Sungbin makes it clear that things are far from over, revealing that his opponent was once a mafia hitman. Admitting that he had improved a lot, Youngmin removes his glasses and shirt, shouting that they will fight to the death. Sungbin doesn't flinch at this declaration and approaches so that both share a mutual blow to the face, followed by an exchange of blows that show they are evenly matched. However, Teak can see that Youngmin is gradually looking superior, so he suggests intervening. But Diob cuts him off, saying that they would only be dead weight in their condition, something that Teak reluctantly accepts. Sungbin also noticed that due to having fought so many people before, he was starting to weaken. Therefore, he can only watch as his enemy dodges all his attacks until he receives a powerful direct blow to the face. He remembers when he was on the streets and Hangul found him, suddenly asking if he was good at cooking, then instructing him to follow if he wanted to live. He remembers how the Hangul family welcomed him with so much love, and he remembers that when he wanted to thank Cho Hangul, he only said that next time he would make sure not to lose. Youngmin was surprised that his last blow didn't knock him out. Sungbin says nothing and, remembering that he promised to protect his new home, he throws a hook that knocks down his opponent, winning the battle, and with a smile, he remarks that he never got used to losing as advised. In the third floor office, Dajun continues his routine of moving to evade B and attacking whenever he gets a slight opportunity, managing to land a couple of hits. Although these didn't seem to do much harm to B, he grunts with annoyance upon noticing the same confident look that seemed to be a characteristic of the runaway family, which irritated him. This is because he himself used to be part of a runaway family to which he had great affection, until they all attacked him treacherously, and he realized that on the streets there was no such thing as families. After realizing that absolute truth, he met someone who shared his stance, the boy who created Higuang. After joining the group, he immersed himself in the world of crime, and if someone got in his way, he would recruit them or kill them. But in the end, everyone was his enemy. That was how he survived, and yet it was incredibly annoying to come across someone willing to fight for their runaway family. The routine of striking and dodging continues for several seconds until Dajun notices an opening on B's face and tries to attack there. However, the criminal predicts this and manages to evade it, grabbing him by the jacket to throw him into the air. The protagonist doesn't quite understand how B could be so fast with his size, but when he approaches running, he is well aware that he will have to defeat him using the techniques that Cho Hangul taught him. So, he spits blood at him to try to block his vision, but B avoids it by tilting his head and delivers a new blow. Dajun dodges it, but while he looks for anything around him to use as a weapon, he lets his guard down and receives a powerful attack from the gangster that ends up breaking one of his arms. The trembling alone is enough for B Gangrak to notice this and approach mockingly. Dajun understood that this practically made it impossible for him to win, and all he could do was receive several kicks from his opponent, who declared that it was as if he were already dead and that he would finish him. But Dajun doesn't give in and stands up again, challenging him to try it while insulting him. This expression of determination irritates B, reminding him of his past self who had the same stupid face, and he hits him to make him stop looking at him. B Gangrak launches a kick that the protagonist understands will knock him out if he receives it. So, with his body pushed to the limit, he manages to roll over it and deliver a final blow to his opponent's chin. The protagonist questions if he had anyone he considered close, to which B replies that, for him, there were only people you took advantage of or used for your own purposes. When he launches a new attack, Dajun dodges it and with a smile says that because he had no one, he would lose. He takes water from the nearby bathtub and throws it in his face to block his vision, then grabs one of the chair legs Bying Chul was on, while his opponent takes his lever again, and declares that now he would die to show him the falsehood of families. Dajun remembers all the moments he lived with the Hangul family, how he met them, their experiences, and assures that he could always trust them with his back. And remembering that he had to use the environment around him, he smiles that Diob, Sungbin, and Teak stopped Beek's movements to hit him, thinking that whoever wasn't alone would always win. This attack knocks out B, and when he's on the ground, Dajun tells him that if he got involved with them, it would end badly. All the guys collapse to the ground after this, complaining of their fatigue. All except Teak, who takes the opportunity to tell Dajun how powerful he had become to the point of defeating an executive and joking that Diob would think twice before messing with him again. Dajun is flattered by this but still blames himself for not believing in Hwan when he told him that his father had been kidnapped. But at least, he is comforted knowing that he was able to save him even if it was a bit late. When he wants to talk to the boss, he looks around, noticing that he's not there. He asks his companions if they've seen the old man, but they deny it. Confused while remembering the wounds he had, he goes outside the room and on the second floor, he asks Daeung if she saw an older man pass by. but she, lying on the floor, indicates that she only saw a silhouette passing through the area, although she couldn't see it clearly. The protagonist starts to worry when he goes to the first floor and still doesn't find him. He takes advantage of one of the guys being semi-conscious to interrogate him about Byung-chul's whereabouts. The guy reveals that one of their comrades dragged him to the underground parking lot and advises him to surrender, since when a target like Byung-chul became a burden, to the point where an executive was defeated, they would be killed. Dajung slams him against the wall and, running, goes down the stairs, hoping it's not too late. Breathing heavily, he could taste his blood, his body felt heavy, and he even stumbled on the stairs, falling. But even so, he had to keep moving because he failed in Hwan by not trusting him, his friend. When he reaches the parking lot, he searches among the cars and sees a figure hidden in the shadows, demanding that they come out, surprised to see who it was. Moon Sung-ho, with nervousness, tells him he's relieved to see him. He reveals that he came to the site upon learning that In Hwan's father had been detained there but didn't go up due to the noise inside. Dajung was about to say something, but, with a smile, he cuts himself off and only says he's happy to see him. After updating him on what happened, the protagonist asks him if he saw Byung-chul around. To this, Sung-ho says with disappointment that he didn't see anything, but he had just arrived. Considering possibilities, he points to a door in the back and suggests that maybe they could check there. The protagonist advances to the spot, followed by his friend, while he explains that he couldn't contact In Hwan, so he's relieved to be with him now, and he would like to help resolve everything so they could all go out for pizza together later. In response, Dajung lands a blow on the guy that he manages to block, and he asks where In Hwan's father is. Sung-ho tries to play innocent, but the protagonist points out that he was suspiciously following behind him while keeping his hands hidden at all times, which he notices were covered in blood. Something illogical for someone who had just arrived. Dropping his act, Sung-ho declares that it was Byung-chul's blood, whom he hid in the trunk. Mockingly, Sung-ho asks if he suspected him, to which Dajung asks if he had been lying all along, if all the moments they spent together were fake. This, as he throws a punch that is finally easily caught by the guy. He admits that, of course, everything was fake, and he even felt nauseous being with someone like him. Furious, the protagonist declares that he will make him pay, but Sung-ho says he lied about something else, which was that he couldn't fight and that, in reality, he had much more experience on the streets than he did, being, in fact, an executive of Higuang. Filled with anger, Dajung unleashes a flurry of kicks that Sung-ho dodges before pushing him away with his hand. The redhead admits to feeling admiration for his ability to fight against him, even in his current condition. But this doesn't matter to Dajung, who only demands to know if Byung-chul is in the trunk. A conjecture that, shamelessly, Sung-ho accepts, although he points out that he couldn't save him if he died, confirming the protagonist's suspicions that they planned to kill the man. Now, Dajung asks him about the day In Hwan messaged him and said they were together, wanting to know what he did to him. With a sadistic smile, Sung-ho reveals that he only kept him close to use him as an advantage against Byung-chul. But the blonde kept bothering him in his quest to find his father, a situation that made him want to kill him, and so he did, maliciously commenting that now he would be buried on some hill. As expected, these words anger the protagonist, causing him to launch a series of attacks combining punches and kicks, all of them easily evaded by the orange-haired guy who tells him he was someone who didn't know when to give up, and that he was only holding back to avoid hurting him because he valued bonds and didn't want to harm him. Dajung doesn't say anything and only tries to resume his attacks. However, the orange-haired guy goes on the offensive, hitting his leg and delivering a frontal hook. The protagonist admits that it feels like he's hitting a wall and his legs can't stay firm, supposing that it was because of his deteriorated condition and he could handle him if he weren't injured. This is something that Sung-ho notices as well, and he attacks him with a hook that makes him step back. Of course, the protagonist continues launching several attacks that are only dodged, but in his mind, he realizes that things were too easy for Sung-ho. And although it was difficult for him to admit it in his current state, he believed the difference between them was too vast. This is reinforced by a blow to his face that makes him remember when they fought in the bar. From that moment on, he knew he could be someone strong, but now he doesn't think he stands a chance against Sung-ho. As if reading his thoughts, Sung-ho positions him to kick him in the face and tells him that it didn't matter if he defeated B. Gangrak because he was stronger than him. Then he launches a kick that, in the end, doesn't connect because In Hwan arrives to get in between them. This relieves Dajung, who tells the blonde that Sung-ho said he had killed him. In response, the blonde confesses that he almost succeeded, and he begins to tell how while pretending to help him in the search for his father, Sung-ho tricked him into taking him to a hill where he ordered his men to bury him alive. which they would have accomplished if it hadn't been for him carrying a knife since the incident with B. Gangrak, a weapon that also helped him extract information from the gangsters about where Sung-ho was going. Knowing this, the protagonist says he's relieved that he's safe now, but the blonde asks him why he was also there and why he had been avoiding him. Dajung tries to explain that it was because of his current condition, but Hwan interrupts to ask if he was fighting for his father. When he confirms it, that's enough for him to support him at that moment and team up to take down Sung-ho together. This makes Sung-ho laugh, reminding both of them that he almost died for them when he was stabbed. To which Dajung admits that at that moment, he was deeply moved and treated him like a brother. But now none of that mattered, knowing that everything was fake. Thus, a battle begins where both boys attack Sung-ho, but he not only dodges them with great skill but also effortlessly counterattacks them. Angry, Hwan takes out the knife he mentioned earlier and attacks head-on. But Sung-ho remains unfazed and grabs his hand before punching him in the face and taking the weapon from him. A series of moves that confirm to the blonde that he was far inferior, and he begins to fear that maybe they couldn't save his father. A fear that only increases with Sung-ho's declaration that he would now ensure to bury him under the sea. Although his words are silenced when he receives the first blow from Dajung, who shouts at him that he wouldn't collapse until they saved Hwan's father. Sung-ho, expressionless, reminds him that he told him it was impossible and begins to deliver a powerful barrage of blows that deal great damage to the protagonist. Nevertheless, the black-haired guy remains standing, so Sung-ho tells him that, in fact, there were few people on the street who could truly stand up to him, so it was better to stop resisting. Then, he declares that the strong can do as they please in this world, and as proof, he takes his arm and tries to break it by hitting his elbow. However, his blow doesn't connect when someone says that there was someone stronger than him, arrives and kicks him, sending him flying. It was Cho Hangul, who congratulates the protagonist for holding out for so long. Seeing him there surprises Dajung, thinking that he wouldn't be able to participate. Hangul only mutters that the situation has changed and that he will explain when he takes care of the situation, which will only take him a second to resolve. Sung-ho also mentions that if he participated, it would turn into an all-out war, but Hangul tells him to shut up, repeating his statement that the strongest could do as they pleased, and that's why he would destroy him. Sung-ho reveals that hearing all the rumors about the great Cho Hangul makes him wonder if he lives up to his fame. Excited, he jumps at him with a punch that the silver-haired guy blocks before launching a series of punches that are dodged, including a flying kick. The brutal display of skills, seeing that he didn't flinch at his leader's blows, makes Dajung understand that Sung-ho's earlier statement about few being able to stand up to him was not just a bluff. The guy in the striped shirt says that it seems his legendary power was just a myth, so he wonders if he would become the best in the city if he defeated him. Blocking his last kick, Hangul acknowledges that he did know how to fight, so he would have to get serious. Sung-ho finds this amusing, saying that he was just putting on an act. In his mind, he was clear that the difference in power between them wasn't that great, being able to read his movements, sure that he could win. However, his surprise is great when he tries to defend against an attack, only for Hangul to change the direction of his fist, striking him in the side, and then giving him a kick in the center. The situation changed. He could no longer read any of his attacks, and now he was receiving every attack he launched. Sung-ho admits that he is even stronger than he thought, and he even panics when he narrowly avoids a blow that would have killed him if it had connected. While lying on the ground, Hangul tells him that he has met many arrogant kids like him who have similarly needed to be punished to understand who they were dealing with. The scene makes it more than clear to the protagonist that his leader had no rival, and when he was about to deliver a new blow, Sung-ho yells at him to stop and explains that he understands that he can't beat him now, so he offers to let him go in exchange for not telling Higuang about his attack. This would take away Higuang's reason to retaliate and keep their group safe. His last chance to do so. Hangul stays still for a few seconds and shakes hands with Sung-ho to the guy's satisfaction, but immediately draws him closer to him to deliver a blow that breaks his nose. What the silver-haired guy tells him is that the time for negotiations has ended, and in reality, he had gone to that place because he had already met with the Hyung of his group. Therefore, his all-out war has begun. This surprises the orange-haired guy because his great Hyung hadn't shown any signs of wanting a war. Anyway, facing an imminent new blow from his opponent, he decides that his priority was to escape from there. At that moment, Dajung shouts at Hangul because a motorcycle was about to run him over. The guy dodges it, and in that distraction, Sung-ho manages to mount it and escape. The orange-haired guy is grateful because he was sure he would die there, although the driver tells him that his boss would give him a lesson for making a mistake. This doesn't seem to bother Sung-ho so much, who only thinks that he doesn't understand what his leader wants, but he would still make sure to please him. Dajun trembles with anger at Sunho's escape, stating that the treacherous rat deserved a good beating. Hangul puts his hand on his shoulder to calm him, saying that he has done a lot for today, as he took down a Higuang base and saved Inwan's father, who was just getting him out of the trunk. Therefore, he shouldn't regret anything if he accomplished so much that day. That night, the Hangul family achieved their second victory against Higuang. Although there had never been an easy fight since he escaped, the protagonist feels that this was the battle from which he learned the most about the street, mainly that he couldn't trust anyone in that world. Just when it was time to part with Inwan, who was carrying his father on his back, he confesses that he had doubted him at one point. However, the blonde says, amidst sobs, that he saved him, and for that, he would always be grateful. A gesture that makes him think that even in such a situation, there were people you could trust. Besides, there's the thought that if he wanted to survive and not die in a place like that, it was necessary to become strong with those trustworthy people. Back at home, the group rested and recovered from their injuries. Teek tells Dajung that everyone fought better than the last time, to which he supposes it's because everyone had resumed training. Upon this, Gaeung, Diob, and Teek try to take credit for Dajung's significant physical improvement. Although the protagonist doesn't continue the discussion but approaches Cho Hangul to ask why he helped them if he didn't want to start a war with Higuang, and also about the truth regarding that conversation with Sungho. Hangul explains that he found out that Higuang had plans to kill them, whether he got involved in that fight or not, which is why he had no qualms about breaking into B Gangrak's base. This isn't enough for Teek, who, remembering that something similar happened before they fought Chun Ki-woon, questions how he manages to get that kind of information and knows how Higuang operates. Although he clarifies that he doesn't suspect him, the long-haired guy makes it clear that he would like to know the truth. Hangul hesitates but then asks them to listen to him first and not misinterpret him, and when they all agree, he reveals that he was the one who created Higuang. 2 hours before the fight at B Gangrak's base, Hangul enters a kind of VIP bar where he meets with an executive of Higuang, the second in command, Nam Wu-cheng. Of course, now in the present, when the silver-haired guy dropped that bombshell news, everyone was in shock. So Hangul takes the opportunity to explain that he didn't create it alone but with him, the current leader of Higuang, Shin Woo-sung. Apparently, he was his close friend, but back then, he began doing more and more foolish things until he finally had no choice but to separate, leaving the organization he helped create. Diob, interested, asks what happened before that. Hangul takes his can, crushes it, and disposes of it while saying with a smile that it's personal. Of course, this angers him, but the silver-haired guy tries to change the subject by lying down and saying that since they gave B Gangrak a beating, it's very likely that Higuang will come after them, although it probably won't be immediate. So he asks his companions if they'd like to move to evade them. The mere suggestion outrages the group, who look at each other to think about it, but Hangul reads their silence and responds with them, saying that running away wasn't the style of the runaway family. Additionally, he reassures them that everything will be fine as long as he's with them. However, this doesn't convince the protagonist when he sees the leader's hesitant expression, although he doesn't say anything about it. The next morning, Hangul was on the rooftop, flipping through a book until he finds an envelope used as a bookmark. Inside it, there is a photo of him and Shin Woo-sung, whose face isn't visible in the photograph. Meanwhile, that day, in a shelter, Lee Jun-soo and Kim Hyun, fugitives from Tessio High School, were in line to get food. The chubby guy complains to the cook to give him more meat, even though he's nervous and says he should give to everyone. This doesn't matter to Hyun, who physically intimidates the young man to make him give him the food he wanted. While eating, Hyun comments that he ran away from home because things were tough, but now on the streets, it's worse because he has no money or a place to sleep. In response, his friend tells him that's why he should join Higuang, explaining that it's a kind of magic that brings together fugitives like them, paying them to commit all sorts of crimes. Hyun likes the description, commenting that, as he's good at beating people up, he would join if he had the chance. Although he also mentions that he could stab someone and be sent to a juvenile facility where they would take care of him. The entire conversation is overheard by the young man who served them, who stands behind Hyun. The young man interrupts to tell him that they weren't there giving them food to do that kind of thing and that they should live properly even if they've run away. Obviously, this infuriates Hyun, who tells him that if he wants to give them advice, he should start by giving them money, something the young man accepts, saying that if they refuse, he could call the authorities to send them back home. Next, we see Lee Jun-soo and Kim Hyun following the young man down a hallway, confused about where they were being taken. The worker says they could help at the church, sleep there, and earn money. This is something the chubby guy finds boring, but his friend seems more interested. although he doesn't give them the chance to discuss it seriously because the young man reveals that he's also a fugitive, so he understood what they were going through. Then, he opens a door and lets them in, making it clear that they shouldn't say things like wanting to stab someone to go to the juvenile facility, as it would be a waste of their youth. At this point, the chubby guy understands the lesson in his words, so wanting to take the money and leave, he tells him that from now on, he would live diligently without harming others. However, the young man stops him and tells him not to waste his time going to the juvenile facility, and that he should live tenaciously instead. At that moment, Hyun is frozen by the scene in front of him. There was Ha-iltek covered in blood in front of a gagged man who he had clearly tortured. Before asking what was happening, the black-haired guy throws a knife at the chubby guy, reminding him of his words about wanting to stab someone to make him do the same to the man. This was his test to join Higuang, and Hyun trembled in fear, so the long-haired guy asks him coldly if he was nothing more than a coward who mentioned their organization in vain. Understanding his situation, Hyun approaches the man, still trembling, to do as he's told. One has passed, says Si-hyun, before indicating that the other boy's test was still pending, Lee Junsu. And that's how the fourth part of this manhwa ends. If you have reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you have been one of the few people to make it here. So comment the word revenge in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.